If you're gearing up for retirement this year, you're in good company. In fact, a higher number of Americans are considering retiring in the upcoming year. A recent Allianz report reveals that 22% expressed their likelihood to retire in 2024, compared to only 17% in 2022. We'll break it down next, right here on Elevate Your Wealth.
And now, Elevate Your Wealth with Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins.
Welcome into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. You can find them at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. 42 combined years experience in the retirement planning business. They are certified financial fiduciaries. And Casey flying solo this week. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. We get into so many different retirement topics, and it's always about planning for what is going to be your future, making sure you have that plan, making sure it's customized. And before we jump headlong into this first one, we're going to talk about, that journey towards your retirement date and how important it is to financially plan, to be mentally prepared. Before we do that, though, Casey, since I've got you one-on-one, I looked at the calendar, and we're not too far off from baseball season, and you are a huge baseball fan. My first question to you is, how did that all happen? Obviously, you had to be introduced to the game, and obviously Mariners. But just kind of fill us in. Why baseball? I mean, obviously, did you play as a youth, coming up through, I guess, what we call life? But how did baseball click with you?
There's a couple of things. I've got a big draw to baseball in a few different ways. I think it's something when you're a kid, you see certain sports, right? I mean, you see all the different sports, right? But you just have a draw towards one, right? Just one that excites you, that you're looking forward to watching or being a part of, right? And for me, that was baseball. So from a young age, I love baseball. And then ultimately, right, I'm a finance guy, right? So numbers are my thing.
Oh, yeah.
Baseball is a numbers game, right? That's it, right? Everybody remembers Moneyball and things like that. So, baseball fills kind of a lot of needs in my life, I guess, right? Because I love the sport, and I love the statistics side of it as well. Growing up, I did play a little bit as a kid, and it's just something that I've always followed. And, I'm homegrown, right? I'm from Seattle, so it's always been the Mariners, right? I love the Mariners, love Ken Griffey Jr., I wish he was still young enough to be playing on our team, right? love to see what him and Julio Rodriguez could do together. So, I love seeing that. I love watching the changes in the game. Last year there were some new rules that came in. So baseball is just something that kind of speaks to me just as a sport by itself. But then, like I said, from a financial perspective, just the numbers side of it is so intriguing. And so my wife and I, we go to a lot of games throughout the year. I am a season ticket holder, so we spend a lot of time at the games, and we really enjoy it. It's fun to just be there with the crowd. They've sped up the game, so things have changed a lot, and it is something that I really enjoy. As a matter of fact, this last year, myself, my wife, and Mark and Lori, so Mark, my business partner, and my father-in-law, so it was me, my wife, my father-in-law, and my mother-in-law. The four of us went to a couple of games, had some great seats, and were able to watch some great games together. And there's just nothing like being at the park, right, with a cold beer in your hand and a hot dog or whatever it is, right, peanuts. It's just, there's nothing like that experience. And it's one of the only places that I feel like I can actually just disconnect, and really just focus on this one thing. I think our lives are so full.
True.
Our phone's always going off.
Sure.
Everybody wants something. The boss wants something. Whatever it is, right? And at a game, I just feel like I can disconnect. I can watch the game and just enjoy my time.
Well, I'm not going to ruin it for you, but I mean, when you think about baseball and you think about what we're talking about, which is having that plan for retirement, I think about the manager. I think he's, he well before this game, he's looking at his lineup or potential lineup, and he's doing matchups on the other side. Who's going to play? Who's possibly going to be in the lineup? What are the pitching matchups? Who hits better against righty, lefty, whatever. But that's all. I mean, to me, that's gamesmanship. I mean, you're planning for your opponent, and when it comes to retirement planning, that's kind of what you're doing. Your opponent is length of time, And you want to make sure you have enough funds to get you all the way through your retirement. So having that plan. But anyway, I love baseball. I don't want you to go to games now and go, oh, man, I'm thinking about retirement. I'm thinking about planning. What's the manager going to do? What am I going to do on Monday? No, in all seriousness, I mean, you think about having that plan and things that you need to do, because it is a big shift going from everyday working life to retirement. And we're going to go over a few steps. We'll hit these real quick. We want to give you an opportunity to, if you have any questions about your situation, if you're 50 and older and you are staring down retirement, we have appointments available for you. Again, with Elevated Financial Management, they are no cost, no obligation, no pressure. We'll tell you about those here in a little bit. But you can come on in and talk about your situation, because there are a lot of you out there that are sitting on your game plan. You have a portfolio, but you haven't mapped it out. So listen up for that. So again, steps that you can take. So creating that clear retirement plan, kind of like that manager in the dugout, Casey, you got to know exactly how you're going to approach each game. And for retirement, you got to know how you're going to approach it as you move towards your retirement date.
Yeah, actually, if we kind of continue that baseball analogy, I think we all understand, obviously, that the manager has a plan of some kind, but that plan is not just this tentative thing, right? I mean, chances are that's written out. Chances are that he has spent a tremendous amount of time talking about that, not only internally, but also with his trusted advisors, right? And looking at all the possibilities and the outcomes and figuring out what is the next play, what is the next move, who's the right person to put in that batting lineup, whatever the circumstance may call for. And our finances have to be the same way, Morgan. We really have to make sure that we have a clear plan, that we understand how it works, and ultimately, that gives us confidence and independence in retirement, right? This is not something that we really get to do again. We get one chance at it. We've got to make sure we get it right. And so, that idea of knowing who we're playing against, which, like you said, is longevity, right? How much time do we have to make all of this last? It's inflation. How do we make sure that doesn't kill our retirement plan? It's the volatility in the market, it's taxes, all of these things. And there's different tools to use for each one of those circumstances. And that clear plan helps us determine which tool is the right one in that particular application. But it takes time to figure that out. It takes a conversation with a trusted advisor for you to learn and understand what those risks are that maybe you can't see because you're the one in the circumstance, right? It's that outside set of eyes, that outside thought process. And so having that defined plan is an absolute must, and it's something that you cannot enter into retirement without.
Well, and we've said this before on the show, and it kind of goes back to the manager in the dugout. You can't you got your written plan, but also there may be something that comes up. Maybe there's a situation in the other dugout that is now going to be in the game, and you have to plan for that. You have to adjust. So
That's right.
The importance of having that open mind, working with a fiduciary, where when you have these meetings and there are situations that are now in that opposing dugout for you, how you're going to adjust to those.
Yeah, that really is key, because I think all too often, folks are sometimes maybe looking for a plan, and like this, step 1, step 2, step 3, and that can be good, right? I mean, ultimately, when we build a plan, there are steps to it. There are certain things we want to do a certain way, and the timing of Social Security and things of that nature, right? That all comes into the mix. But you just said something really important. In a baseball game or in any sporting event, on the other side, there's somebody else that's playing against us, right? And their plan, their strategy is not static. And so our plan and our strategy can't be static either. And the same is true for retirement. We can set up a plan up front, but it has to evolve over time, because our life is changing, our needs are changing, our health might change, the economy might change, taxes might go up, all of these things. And so we have to be accounting for that, not only when we build the plan, but we also have to have flexibility and leeway to make adjustments. And so the same way that a baseball game does not happen in a vacuum, right? We can't just create this plan and just follow it step by step. We have to adjust. The same is true for our retirement. it does not happen in a vacuum. We see this all the time. Folks come into us and they're ready to retire next week, right? Morgan, they'll tell me, Casey, I got to get out of this job as quick as I can, right? I got to be done with it. Yep. But it's interesting. As soon as they have a plan and they now feel comfortable to retire, they know that they can do it. Well, now suddenly they decide, oh, I guess my work isn't that bad, right? Because now I'm working because I want to, right? I'm not working because I feel like I have to. Right. And that right there is something where the circumstance has changed. Now, that actually makes planning easier if we're going to delay retirement a little while or do a hybrid retirement where we work part-time or whatever that is. But that is a change, and that does require adjustments in the plan. And so just something that small requires continued input and continued management to make sure that it's a success.
The power of confidence. I mean, when you have confidence moving forward, that's what it's about. I mean, having that plan, knowing that you're okay, making that decision, I want to stay at work a little bit longer, but not because you have to, but because you want to. Yeah. Opportunity is right now. We have appointments available. There are 10 of them. Casey, kind of walk us through what's going to happen if they're fortunate enough to grab one of these appointments.
Well, this is an opportunity for us to have a one-on-one conversation. So we'll talk about where you're at in your current financial journey and start to figure out what your goals for retirement are, what your passions in retirement will be, and what your struggles have been leading up to this point. What issues or what investments have you made that you're happy with or not happy with? We'll look at what the market is doing. We'll look at how taxes are going to affect your retirement, inflation. Essentially, what we'll do is we'll have that conversation to determine what situation you're currently in and what changes can be made to potentially improve it. And that'll come in the form of a written financial plan put together by our team of certified financial planners. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
Okay, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. We've got the 10 appointments. They are complimentary. All you've got to do is hit this number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Get it? Hit the number, just like baseball. 866-668-3625. Grab one of those appointments and do it right now. They're complimentary. All right, when we return, retirement marks a very crucial milestone. A lot of intricate decision-making influenced by factors, financial stability, health, personal aspirations. We're going to talk about all that when we come back. Welcome back into Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. Casey going solo this week. You can find both Mark and Casey at Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle. They've got over 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for what is their retirement, their end game. And folks, look, we get it. A lot of people are stressed out about the economy, how things are going. If you have a retirement plan, a written retirement plan, you have confidence as you move towards your retirement date, and you want to make sure you have the funds to not only get you there, but last the entire time you're in retirement. That's what we do each and every week. We talk about all these different topics. And again, an opportunity for you to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. No cost, no obligation, no pressure appointment. It's ongoing during the course of this show. All you've got to do is call 866-668-3625. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. 866-668-3625. All right, decision to retire. It's highly personal. Obtaining information on the average retirement age and current trends can provide valuable perspective insight. So we're going to talk about some of these. And the numbers have changed. And Casey, you're a numbers guy. We talked baseball in the first segment. It's all about stats, who you're going to play against a certain right-handed pitcher and who's had success there. So you're going to plug them into the lineup. Same thing goes for retirement planning. How is it working as far as the numbers? So the average retirement age in the U.S., it is an ever-changing scenario.
It is. Yeah, it is. It's evolving, right? In 1986, the average retirement age in the U.S. was around 62 for men and 57 for women. By 2016, those ages had increased to about 65 for men and 63 for women. And as of 24, the average retirement age for retirees is 64, but workers anticipate working or actually retiring at age 66. And then as far as Social Security is concerned, full retirement age is 67 for those that are born in 1960 or later. So that's getting pushed out, right? People are working longer, right? The retirement or the average retirement age is getting larger and larger. And there's a few things at play there, I think, Morgan. One of them being that we have longer lifespans. And
True.
So that being said, we need more money to fund the retirement and because it's potentially a longer retirement. Even though we're retiring later, we have a longer lifespan. So we have to accrue and build for that. So that's part of it. And then two, I do believe that market conditions, the cost of just everyday life, inflation, all those things, that really is factoring in, and that's weighing on people today. And it really does create a high level of uncertainty for folks as they get to retirement. And so we see a lot of people that have planned very well. I mean, we have great savers walking our door every single week that have done a phenomenal job saving for retirement and have been very responsible in that way. And yet they all have the same question: am I going to be okay? Right? Because at the end of the day, we don't know how long it needs to last, and we don't know how inflation's going to hit it and how taxes are going to hit all these things. And so without a plan, that all becomes very concerning, right? And it doesn't matter how much you've saved. It only matters how long you can make it last, right? And still have that same standard of living that you're looking for in retirement. So that average retirement age is evolving. It's changing. I don't expect that it's going to go down. I think it's going to continue to go up.
Well, you look at that number, and there are two things that are going on there. People are either they're okay to retire or they're not. And you look at those numbers. If you have a plan, you're going to know one of those two things. You're going to know if you have enough. You have that confidence we talked about earlier. But you're also going to find out if you don't.
Right.
And that's going to take a little bit more planning. It's going to take you a little bit longer to get to that confidence factor that we talked about, but at least you're going to know. There are a lot of people out there, Casey, that are sitting on these portfolio and they feel like, you know what, when I get to retirement, I'm just going to flip everything on and everything's going to be good. That's not a retirement plan.
That's right. Yeah, portfolio is not a plan. That's the reality of it. Your statements are not a plan. And we have seen actually a big shift in the financial world where now statements will show maybe like some level of expected income that you could receive, or they'll give like a date of when you could retire, things like that. And I personally think that's very misleading from a lot of the companies that do that, because what they're really indicating by that is think about this. So to the audience that's listening, think of your statement. If you have a statement that says, here's a date that you could retire and you could receive X amount in income in retirement at that time. Think about this. Have you had a conversation with a financial advisor that knows your situation, knows the ins and outs of what you want to do in retirement, has talked to you about the impact of taxes and inflation in your specific situation, and knows how much spending you actually need to have in retirement? Does that statement that you have any detail other than a computer on the backside of it or a calculator that ran a couple of quick numbers and then spit these things out on the page? The chances are probably not, right? And the same is true for the market volatility and how you're currently invested. The same is true for your Social Security. Does your statement in your 401k or your IRA, and it shows you when you can retire and all this and that, is it factoring in how much Social Security you're going to receive? Probably not, because it doesn't know how much you're going to receive unless you told it. Unless you had that conversation with somebody. And so, that really is, I think, a misleading thing. Some of the box firms are doing that, and that's not a plan. That's a couple of numbers on a page. But a plan requires much more effort and time to make sure that it's valuable in your circumstance and that it really is specifically catered towards you.
Here on Elevate Your Wealth, powered by Elevated Financial Management right here in Seattle, we talk about all these different retirement topics, and you're going to have questions about your own situation, and we get it. I mean, this is a very, very important part of your life as you start to plan for, you're in the middle of this planning for retirement because you want to enjoy your retirement. You want to make sure your money doesn't run out. But you need to have that plan. But here on the program, what we do is we open up 10 appointments. They are complimentary. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. You can grab an appointment right now, meet with Mark Casey and their team, 866-668-3625. Again, these are complimentary, 866 866-668-3625, and have that confidence as you move to and through retirement. Have that written retirement plan. So 60,000-foot view. Let's talk a little bit about, how can people, with all the uncertainty and when you're going to retire and how it's going to work, how can you retire on your own terms, Casey? I mean, I know that, it's going to be a different story, a different ending for everybody, but maybe some basics on how you can kind of get going and retire on your own terms.
Yeah, there's a few things that we'll hit here. Of course, when you access your savings is important, maximizing your contribution. So the more you save, the more that's going to give you the ability to control when you retire. Because if you don't save enough, then it's being controlled for you, right? Because you're not going to be able to retire as early as you'd like. What your expenses are going to be in retirement. And, this may sound like a no-brainer when I say it, but when I say determining what your expenses are, I mean actually figuring out what they're going to look like, right? Not having an idea of, I think I need $6,000 a month and that'll give me what I need, right? We need to figure out what our retirement life is going to cost. That does not just include utilities. That includes the travel. That includes the time you want to spend with your grandkids, all the things that you want to do together. That includes buying the RV. That includes the plane tickets. That includes whatever it is, right? All the golf that we're going to play, right? In your circumstance, right, Morgan? It's a lot of golf. Yeah, there you go.
Lots of golf.
I see a big smile on your face when I say that, right? So, those are the things that we have got to account for when we talk about expenses in retirement. So that's one of the first things, is really figuring out what your expenses are going to look like. And then, a couple other things here. Understanding your Social Security benefits. There are a lot of details to claiming Social Security. Many people are confused about how Social Security works. And even if they understand when they can claim it, very commonly folks don't quite understand all the nuances of how to claim if you have a spouse and how your spouse is affected by when you claim and vice versa, all those things. So there's details there to understand. And then I think one of the biggest things is having true diversification in your investments. So many people walk through our door each week, Morgan, that have a statement, like you said, or a portfolio, like you said. And maybe you've got a 401k from an old company and your current 401k, and your spouse has the same thing. So now you got 4 different accounts. And many have this feeling of diversification, but when we start to look at them all together, a lot of them are investing the exact same way. You got 4 different accounts that hold very similar investments. And so now we're not diversified like we thought we were. And as we're leading to retirement, that's a recipe for disaster. That's a recipe to have to delay retirement. That's a recipe to have to take less income in retirement. And so we really want to think about these things as we're getting closer and have a plan.
I tell you, so very important. Just kind of know what you got. And if you don't know what you don't know, guess what? You don't know. You need to know exactly what's going on with your portfolio. You need to have that plan. We've got 10 appointments, Casey. Let's walk them through what's going to happen for these 10 callers.
Well, this is your opportunity to get a plan. This is your opportunity to have that conversation, sit down one-on-one with a financial professional, somebody who will build a custom-tailored plan just for you. So our team of certified financial planners will build a written financial plan that will account for inflation, it'll account for taxes, it'll account for the goals that you have for the future and where you're currently at, and figuring out how to bridge the gap between now and what that future retirement holds. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
Here's the phone number, 866-668-3625. Again, 866-668-3625. That will secure one of the 10 appointments. They are complimentary. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Call now, 866-668-3625. Meet with Casey, Mark, their entire team, 866-668-3625. When we return, are you and your spouse, if you're retiring as a couple, financially compatible? It's a great question. We'll get to some of the answers when we come back. Elevate Your Wealth, hosted by Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. Elevated Financial Management, where you can find them right here in Seattle. They have a wonderful resource website. Check it out, efmnw.com. All letters, efmnw.com. Again, their TV show, Elevate Your Wealth, and also radio shows and podcast form are there for you. Again, a lot of information, great resource website. That's efmnw.com. And between Mark and Casey, 42 years combined experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for that retirement. And we have Casey going solo today. Mark is on assignment. They are certified financial fiduciaries, and I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. We always have a lot of fun talking about these different topics, but now we're going to go into an area that might not be fun, but it's something we need to discuss when it comes to couples that are retiring. So are you financially compatible with your spouse? That's a question. A CNBC survey found that 64% of couples admit to being financially they're just not compatible. So I mean they can't get along financially with their partners, and having just different philosophies about spending, different philosophies about saving, and also investing their money. So the numbers are kind of interesting, but at the same time, I get it. We're all individuals. We all have our own personalities. Right. You're attracted to this person. Obviously, you're with them, but that doesn't mean you have to be a robot and be just like them.
Right. Yeah, that really is the truth, right? Most of us, I think it's interesting. The survey said that 64% of couples admit to being
right. It's probably a lot higher than that.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and we see that all the time, right? Even in small ways, right? I think one of the easiest ways to think about this is usually in a couple, you've got one spouse who is more inclined to take risk with their investments and the other spouse who is more conservative, right? They say opposite attract, right? So it makes sense that we maybe don't see eye to eye within a couple. Between my wife and I got a real close relationship with the Amazon guy, and she doesn't, right? So, right?
That's awesome. I would have thought it was the other way around.
Right?
No?
Exactly. She orders a few things too. I can't say she's completely blameless, but that being said, we are a little different in that way. My wife is the saver in our relationship, and we are both savers. She is more of the saver than myself. But ultimately, that is the case. I very rarely do couples see 100% eye to eye on something. And especially when it comes to money, because a lot of what happens when we're young, we see our parents struggle financially or do well financially, or friends or family or whatever it is when we're young. That affects how we handle our finances in the future. That behavioral finance, we have studied this endlessly. And what happens when we're young does have a lifelong impact on our finances. And so amongst many other things as well, right? There's lots of things that factor into that. So I think this is an interesting thought. There's one here that 1 in 5 couples identify money as their greatest relationship challenge.
Understand that, yeah.
Yeah, I can see that, right? Because finances, money, that is one of the biggest stressors in all of our lives, right? It really is. And so for it to only actually be the biggest challenge in 1 in 5 couples, I'm kind of surprised by that.
I thought it would be more.
Yeah, I thought it would be more too.
I know that's a category, but 1 in 5, that seems low.
It does. Yeah, it does. And, ultimately it makes sense. Like I said, right? You and Morgan, you hit on this, right? You're attracted to this person. You've built a life with them, all these things. You're not going to see eye to eye on everything. And finances are definitely a part of that. Money, how you spend money, where you spend it, that kind of thing. It really does come into play. So it's not a huge surprise that this many people are financially incompatible, quote unquote.
Well, before we move on, I've got to ask you, if you go to your Amazon account, Casey, what are they recommending that you put in your cart, obviously based on former purchases, since you are the person that has the Amazon truck pulling up to the house?
Yeah. It's...
What are your repeat offenses? As long as you can share them.
Oh yeah, yeah,
right?
absolutely,
Right?
yeah. Nothing inappropriate. I do order a lot of stuff for the office, so that's my first cop out. Okay, so I'll use that as my cop
tax
out.
write-off.
But yeah, there you go. Yep, exactly. Yep. But there's a lot of Mariners stuff in there, right? I like jerseys, if I'm being totally honest.
Okay.
There are.
Now, do you wear them or do you frame them? What do you do?
I wear them. Yeah, I wear them because we go to a lot of games, right? I like to wear the jerseys, that kind of thing. I like hats, that kind of stuff, right? It's all Mariners gear. But there's a lot of other things in there too, right? I'm a big car guy, so there's lots of car stuff in there. There's the occasional tool and that kind of thing, because I do like to work on my own cars and motorcycles and things of that nature. So, there's a lot going on there. And I'm a big project guy. I love working around the house. I love doing things myself. I love a new challenge. And so that means that, I get to go buy all the new tools for the new challenge that I'm taking on. I probably don't need to do that every time, but, I'm going to use them again, right? So I better buy them, right? I shouldn't just borrow it. I should buy it. So, yeah, there's a lot going on there.
Yeah, and going back to our theme, we're all different. And you kind of need to be on the same page when it comes to planning. You don't have to be exactly like your partner, but if you're working with a fiduciary and you're mapping out your retirement plan, you're more likely to get on the same page, or at least kind of be in the same zip code when it comes to planning. You don't have to be the same, but you really need to kind of at least try to be on the same page as you're retiring as a couple. I do not want to go into darkness, so I want to jump to this. How do you gauge just what is the compatibility financially? And if it's not where it needs to be, Casey, how do we work on that?
That is a tough question, right? Being on the same page when it comes to your financial values is really important, right? So how much are you saving on a monthly basis, right? And you think about that maybe as a single person before you get into a relationship. I save 10%. It's totally okay for you to ask your future mate or the person that you've been in a relationship for a long time with, what are your financial goals, right? Like, what kind of debt do you have? Because maybe if you're thinking about getting married, or maybe it's a second marriage, that kind of thing, whatever it is, those things are going to affect you. And even if you're not getting married, this is just somebody that you're going to be with for a long, long time.
Right.
That can still affect you, right? That still has an impact on you, and vice versa. And so a lot of it just comes down to having a conversation. And I think so often people miss that part of it. They miss having the conversation, because the reality is it can be kind of uncomfortable, right?
Yeah,
to ask.
the money conversation is not one that a lot of people want to have.
Yeah, they don't, right? And I get that, right? It can be awkward, but this is the person you're going to share your life with. This is the person that you hopefully feel the most comfortable with. And so ideally you can have this conversation about finances. So, in the pecking order of where you spend your money, where does getting out of debt or staying out of debt fall, right? Where does saving for your retirement and making sure that you have an emergency fund, where does that fall? Or does it all go to the Amazon guy, right? That's the big thing, right? So,
yeah, Casey.
Yeah. So how does that set up in your life, right? What's the importance in your life? And then from there, it's really about being transparent. You got to be honest with one another. You've got to maybe even confess a little bit and say, you know what, I struggle with X, Y, and Z. I got a credit card that I haven't paid off for a number of years, and that eats at me. And I got to figure out how to do this, right? Help me figure out this plan. How do we combine together and ultimately work towards this? And that's where we collaborate and we work on those financial goals together. And that's really important as a couple to tackle those things. And then ultimately, too, both parties, if you're going to sit down and build a retirement plan, Morgan, both parties have to be involved, right?
Agree.
We can't just have one spouse. Maybe that's where the conversation starts, and that's okay. Maybe one spouse just couldn't make it that time or something. But if you're going to sit down with a financial professional, you're going to sit down with a planner, with an advisor, with a retirement planner like we do here at Elevated, you've got to do it as a couple, because it does affect both parties, and both parties need to have a general idea of what the plan is going to be and have the opportunity to air concerns and learn and all those things, and make sure that as a couple, they're on the same page, because all too often we have one spouse that heads up the financial aspect of the relationship, and that's okay, right? Obviously, in my marriage, that's me, right? Kind of naturally so.
It's your gig, man.
Yeah, that's
what you do.
Should be my job, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately, my wife does understand our finances very, very well, and that's because we have a transparent relationship. We talk about these things, and we make sure that we're on the same page And if I think about this, if I was going to meet with an advisor to help me build a retirement plan, even though my wife would probably be disinterested in the conversation, she absolutely would be happy that she came, because it's going to give her the confidence as we move forward into our future that the plan is going to work well. And that's the same for any of the clients that we work with. We want both spouses to understand it and to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah, it's so important to be on that same page. I love the transparency conversation. That's a very vulnerable time for a couple. Yeah. But if you can get through that, yes, I mean, you can plan for retirement. You can move forward. If you can't, well, you're going to know that's going to be a stumbling block. But we're talking about the couple scenario when it comes to retirement and things you need to kind of look out for. We're going to give you an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. And if you're a couple scenario and you're out there and these are all kind of points that are hitting you and going, hadn't really thought about that, but I'd like to talk about it. There's going to be an opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management. These appointments are complimentary. You can call 866-668-3625. Casey, I know we're running short on time. I want to make sure that people understand exactly what they're going to get. And when they do meet with you, you do a lot of listening. You don't talk at people. This is about kind of getting to know the person that's in front of you, getting to know what their situation is, because their scenario is unique to them.
It really is, yeah, and I appreciate you bringing that up, Morgan. We don't talk at people. We do our best not to use financial jargon. We're not here to prove to anybody how smart we are or all the financial information floating around in our heads. This is about whoever it is that we're talking to. And so for those of you listening at home, if you're thinking of this like we just talked about, where we've got couples that are quote unquote financially incompatible, that's okay, right? You can work through that. That's not that big a deal. That's something that can be resolved if you have that transparency, if you have a plan, if you take the time to meet with an advisor that can help you build something solid and customized that works for both of you, right? And so that's exactly what we're going to do. If you're willing to pick up the phone and give us a call, we'll put together a written financial plan and make sure that it's something that's custom tailored and custom suited to what you need as a couple.
We have 10 appointments. Call right now. They are complimentary. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Here's the phone number, 866-668-3625. Call it right now, 866-668-3625. Get that ease of mind. Get that confidence knowing you've taken that first step to go down the path, or if you're in the middle of something, need that second opinion, call right now, 866-668-3625. When we return, I've got retirement scenarios. I'll throw him a case, see what he comes up with. It's all coming up next. Elevate Your Wealth. Your hosts, Mark Stimson and Casey Elkins. Casey going solo this week, Mark Stimson on assignment. You can find them both right here in Seattle. Elevated Financial Management, 42 combined years of experience in the retirement planning business, helping hundreds of their clients get ready for retirement. They're certified financial fiduciaries. It's all about having that plan for retirement. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. We talk the talk, but we also walk the walk here on the program. Opportunity for you to get on their calendar, cost-free. That means complimentary. Leave the checkbook at home. See how you're doing with your retirement planning. Look, if you're in the middle of something, need that second opinion, bingo, this is your opportunity. If you've saved $250,000 or more towards that retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. You can grab one right now, one of the appointments, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Again, each one of these appointments, you're going to walk out with a written financial plan. 866-668-3625. All right, scenarios, Casey. I've got the first one for you. I'm the one that handles all the finances in the house. We've kind of already had this conversation.
Right.
Short of lying to my spouse and saying we're going to go watch the game at a bar somewhere, how can I get this partner in life on board to come with me, or should I just not even worry about it and come solo?
That's a good question. How can you get the other one to come with you without lying to them?
What do you mean we're not going to have wings?
Yeah, right. I guess we could have wings at the office.
Yeah, there
if
you
we
go.
really need to. Yeah, we can order some wings in. It really is important to come together. We talked about this a little bit ago, Morgan. It really is important to come together because each of you have your own concerns. And even though one spouse may be a little more disinterested or maybe doesn't have as many concerns, it's still valuable for them to meet the potential firm that you're going to be having hopefully a lifelong relationship with, and ultimately building a plan for you. You want both spouses to be comfortable with that and understand how it works. But I'll say this. If you can't get your spouse to come with you on the first time that we get together, that's okay. We can try again for the second time. And usually we can kind of talk through some of the things that we do and why it was beneficial for you to come into the office and have a conversation with us. And sometimes that can whet the appetite enough of the other spouse for them to come back on the second appointment. And you can even tell them that, Casey, Mark said, hey, you really should come because it would be beneficial for them to know you and to meet you. It'd be beneficial for you, and I would feel better about that, that kind of thing. So I would say don't let it deter you from having the conversation alone, but do everything you can to bring them. And really, maybe if you're looking to come in and talk with us, have them go to our website and check out who we are, right? Listen to our podcast and learn a little bit about us to maybe build that comfort and give them an idea of what it is that we do and what we talk about and get a feel for who we are, right? Because that's really what this is about.
Yeah, it's a comfort level. This is a big part of what's going to be the rest of your life. It's very personal, and you need to be comfortable with the people you're working with. That's why these appointments are a great kind of gateway for you to see if Elevated Financial Management and Mark and Casey and their team is a good fit for you, and they're going to see if you're a good fit for them. That's what these appointments are for. You can call 866-668-3625. Grab one of them right now. All right, next scenario, big box firms. We use that term quite a bit on the program. I'm not going to mention the one I'm dealing with, but the other day I got a call, and I felt like I was being strong-armed into an exploding offer if I didn't lock it in right now. Is this pretty common practice?
It used to be more common than it is now, but it is still something that we hear about. I'll say this idea of the window's closing fast and we've got to do something about it right now. There's this hot stock or fund or something like that. I'm not a big fan of that approach. And I think you're right. I think strong-armed would be kind of the correct term. Morgan, for us, when folks come in and we're having this conversation, I never have a hot stock tip. I never have a shiny new product because that's not who we are, right? That's not the type of firm that we are. I'm agnostic when it comes to the investment. There are some investments that I think are better than others, but the reality is, what are we trying to do? That's really what this boils down to. And if I'm telling you that we've got this great new stock or this great fund or something like that, and it's going to solve all your retirement concerns, I'm deciding that it's the right thing for you before I've ever even had a conversation with you. And that's not the right way to go about it. That's not what a fiduciary would do, right? The reality is that you want to be working with an advisor that understands you and understands your goals and what you want and what you're comfortable with and what you're not comfortable with, and then helps you pick out the right tools to fit your circumstance. And that's why I say we're agnostic when it comes to investments, because they each do something different than another. That doesn't make any of them right or wrong. It makes some of them wrong in the wrong application. But if we use them in the right way, then it's okay. And that's where, again, working with a firm that's holistic, we're planning, we're accounting for everything, and we have all the tools in the tool belt. Because if all I have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail, right? And that's where you get this window of opportunity is closing fast. Make sure that you lock this in right now, right? We're not going to do that. I don't care about that. I want to make sure that we do something right for the client and help them figure out what the best thing is. And so I would be very cautious of anybody, whether it's a big box firm or a small boutique office or any anybody telling you that there's this great new thing and the window of opportunity is closing and you got to do something about it now. It's very something to be very cautious about.
Yeah, just think of it as, you're meeting with someone that's going to help you plan what is going to be your future. You're going to talk about what you have, so put that in the analogy of the puzzle. So you take a look at all your puzzle pieces, you put it out on the table, you talk about those, you talk about your goals, you talk about what you want out of retirement, and then you take a look at what you have. And there are going to be some things that are missing. And that's when you start really digging in to your plan. How do you put these puzzle pieces together? How do you get pieces into that puzzle that are going to complete your retirement picture? I mean, that's what planning is all about. And the opportunity to get on the calendar with Elevated Financial Management and talk about your puzzle, see if you've got all your pieces and how they're going to fit together, call this number, 866-668-3625. That's 866-668-3625. Now, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. 866-668-3625. All right, another scenario. Everything that we talk about on the show, and there's a scenario where they don't feel like they have enough, right? They feel like they're kind of behind. And so the question from this scenario is they're already in retirement. They're a couple of years into retirement, Casey, and they feel like they're behind. Is it too late for a person like this to come in and start planning?
Absolutely not. No, not at all. It's never too late. The reality is if you've already retired, there's still lots of things that can be done because, as we talked about earlier, Morgan, this is not planning in a vacuum, right? So we create a plan up front. I'll give you a scenario. Let's say you're 65 and you're going to retire at 66. So we got 1 year before you retire. We create a plan. We might change that plan 2 or 3 times before you actually retire, and then we will continue to manage it and adjust it for the next 30 years of your life, right? And so just because you're a few years into retirement doesn't mean that what you already have in play, you're just stuck with forever. There's absolutely improvements or adjustments that could be made because your life has changed and you've got to make those adjustments to fit you. That's what we really are always looking to do when it comes down to building the plan, is making sure that the investments and that the plan fits the client instead of the client having to alter their lifestyle to fit whatever investment product they're already currently in or whatever that type of scenario looks like, right? And so it's always about fitting things to what you need individually, and your life has changed in 3 years since you've retired. Maybe your goals have changed, whatever it is. It's not too late. It's absolutely something that we'd be happy to help you address. And ultimately, it's whether you're a client already or not, we would continue to make those adjustments over time.
Yeah, it's like the old Friends episode when they're moving the couch. Pivot! Pivot!
Pivot!
Pivot! If you need to change, you need to change it up. This is like retirement's not in a vacuum, as Casey has stated, and we've talked about many times on this program. All right, final scenario for you. Pension. I've been offered a lump sum option. Should I do this?
Ooh, good question. Really good question. Not everybody gets the lump sum option. So having the option is nice, right? It's always nice to have choices. Should you do it? Well, there's a lot of detail there that I would need to answer that. I will tell you this, though. Very commonly, taking a lump sum option will give you other choices to do things with your money outside of just guaranteeing that income. And what I mean by that is this. We all want as much guaranteed income as we need, but I do have a client. He worked for a big airline. I won't mention any names while we're on the air here, but worked on a big airline here locally, and he's got a great pension coming his way. But he was able to take a lump sum for part of that pension, which lowered his income amount, but now he's got this big chunk of cash that he can do whatever he wants with, right? And so for him, he didn't need the full income from his pension. He only needed a part of it. And instead, having this chunk of money that he could do whatever he wants with was more valuable to invest in other ways and to look at real estate and all these different things. So in his circumstance, it made sense to take a lump sum along with some of the income from the pension. For you, it may make sense to do that. It might make sense to do a 100% lump sum. The big question is this. If you are not married and you don't take the lump sum, your pension will not pass on to anybody when you pass away. So taking the lump sum and maybe creating a private pension or something along those lines would give you the opportunity to still have that as an inheritance for your children, if that's a goal of yours or something that you want to accomplish. So there's a lot of ways to go about this. I could answer this in a lot of different ways, but again, it's got to be custom tailored. It's got to be custom suited to the individual.
Yeah, I mean, it's all comes down to that. I mean, your situation is unique to you, and everybody out there listening, make sure you have a customized plan. Opportunity right now to get on Elevated Financial Management's calendar, complimentary. Casey, walk us through these 10 appointments.
Well, if you've been listening to our show today, we've talked about having a plan. We've talked about making sure that we time Social Security correctly. We've talked about knowing what the risks are in retirement and making sure that we're structured properly for market volatility and taxes and inflation, all these things. The reason we talked about that on the show, because that's exactly what we talk about when you come into our office. So we're going to talk through each of those things as they fit in your circumstance and what your true circumstance is, and then help you build something custom tailored to help you retire confidently and make sure that you've got independence through retirement. So don't hesitate. Pick up the phone. Give us a call.
10 appointments, complimentary. Again, if you've saved $250,000 or more towards your retirement, these strategies are going to work best for you. Again, meet with the team, see where you are with your retirement planning, or if you haven't started, get going. 866-668-3625 is the number to call to secure one of the 10 complimentary appointments. And again, you're going to walk out with a written financial plan. 866-668-3625. Again, 10 appointments. They will go fast. Call now. 866-668-3625. Another edition of Elevate Your Wealth is in the books. Casey Elkins flying solo. Nice job, Casey. I'm Morgan Patrick. Guess what? We'll see you on the radio next week.
Investment advisory services offered through Foundations Investment Advisors, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. The content provided is intended for informational and educational purposes only. The views, statements, and opinions expressed herein are those of the individual speakers and not necessarily those of Foundations and its affiliates. The information contained herein does not constitute an offer to sell any securities or represent an express or implied opinion or endorsement of any specific opportunity, offering, or issuer. Any discussion of performance or returns is not indicative of future results. Each individual investor situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstances. Foundations only transacts business in states where it is properly registered or excluded or exempted from registration requirements. Registration as an investment advisor is not an endorsement of the firm by securities regulators and does not mean the advisor has achieved a specific level of skill or ability. No legal or tax advice is provided. Always consult with a tax professional. All rights reserved.